republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, I'll open up this special Commissioners Council and Emergency Services Review Board. The Commissioners have just a little bit of Commissioners' business to finish up real quick from this morning's meeting. So, okay, Rick, Dave, have you two had a chance to look over that coroner's contract?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Okay, you guys reviewed the travel authorization reports?
Yep.
Any questions on that?
Good.
Okay, I entertain a motion to approve the travel authorization expense forms.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Okay, have you guys had a chance to look over the minutes for October 2nd Commissioners meeting?
Yep.
Any corrections?
I didn't see any.
Looked okay.
I entertain a motion to approve the October 2nd Commissioners minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Motion carries. Just remember to sign all this stuff afterwards.
Stamps.
Okay, we have the payroll claims docket for 10/20/23. The payroll amount is $257,843.87 with a payroll deduction of $115,847.05. You guys had a chance to look at that?
Yep.
Okay, we have the insurance docket for the disbursement of 10/12 to 10/18 of $9,346.22.
Yep.
We've got the utilities docket of $23,772.33. We have miscellaneous claims for November 6th of $1,822,104.86.
Yep.
We've got the credit card docket in here for $10,237.01. And there's $217,000 checks not on the docket. Okay, we've got the lit distribution, $733,015.09. We have 11/3 payroll. The payroll is $256,484.72 with the payroll deduction of $92,938.26. Guys, look at the transfer request. We have a transfer request from the maintenance director of the county, the annex, $20,121 from equipment maintenance to building repair to pay for the glass. What is the stuff we had done?
Yep.
We've got the maintenance director for the annex, snow removal, $1,000, to landscaping, $1,000 to cover the redoing the landscaping in front of the building, the annex building. We have a transfer from the health department of $1,000 from well testing services to mileage, to cover mileage for the rest of the year for inspections and meetings. We have a transfer from the health department from animal testing of $150 to professional fees, cover the nursing license renewal for the public health nurse and the part-time nurse. Transfer from communications from office supply of $700 to uniforms purchase $700, covering the cost of uniforms from last, and then into the shortage we did last year, so we're going to cover that. Transfer request from the commissioners from dues of $25 to vehicle registration to cover one of the transfer vans. We have the county commissioners. $953 from legal and lawsuit to state meetings and conference to pay for the commissioners' conference registration and hotel. And a transfer request from coroner from cleaning services of $3,000, X-ray lab $3,000, service and supply of $1,000, and transport of $1,000, a total of $8,000 from those items to deputy coroner to pay the remaining deputy coroner contractual services. We have transfer from the corner of $150 from dues to continuing education. Pay the stipend to the corner for request travel. And a transfer request from the corner, $400 from transport to $400 to the mileage. So pay out the mileage for the corner. A transfer request from the highway department of $3,008 from signage to construction. To transfer the place encumbered funds for sidewalk construction into the appropriate account. And then we have an appropriation from the highway department for construction, $4,816. It's to appropriate to cover the amount due for the museum sidewalk ramp that exceeds the quoted amount. We have an appropriation request from the highway department, $10,000, repair building equipment, put it in the mechanics fund to make sure we have everything covered by to the end of the year. So we don't run out of here without yeah. Okay, well, I entertain a motion to approve all the transfers, adjustments, appropriation, and
Second.
all in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Okay, thank you. Okay, this evening's meeting is joint between the council and the commissioners and the emergency services committee. This is to update us on contractual, the proposals that we received. So, Gail or Barry, who wants to take it? Barry?
Yeah, Barry, go ahead and present.
You want me to start?
Yeah.
Well, good evening. For anyone that has not had the opportunity to meet me in the last several months, I'm Barry Ritter, co-founder of Ritter Strategic Services, a public safety consulting firm that was hired by the commissioners to facilitate this EMS project. Many months ago, my company was hired to conduct a strategic planning study for EMS ambulance services in Fulton County. With me tonight, and spent a great deal of time in Fulton County, is Brent Meadows, our EMS subject matter expert, who's helped us on this project. In the midst of that project, the county received notice that the current EMS provider would be ending their agreement for EMS service, which allowed the county to exercise their right and expedite an RFP process for EMS service in the future. At the time that letter was received, I think the original thought was that was a disservice to the county, when in actuality it was contrary to that. It allowed the county to move forward with this competitive process. We knew going through that strategic planning study and the meetings that we'd attended that an RFP was very evident where we were going to end, and what happened is it allowed us to move forward. The amount of community input throughout this process is unlike anything I've seen before. Community is engaged, first responders is engaged, elected officials, lots of comments, lots of dialogue, which is encouraging for such an important service such as EMS for the citizens that live here. What that has allowed us to do is to ensure that the county completes their due diligence in awarding a contract for EMS service in the future. That it was not just a simple renewal, nor was it just an exercise in government that someone wants to provide the service and we'll contract with them. I'm not sure that there's any rock that's not been turned over in the last several months in the process that we've gone through. And for that, I thank all of you, elected officials, community members, service providers. It's actually been enjoyable to work on this process and receive the feedback that we have. Community forums. When we first started, I think we were under contract for 2 community forums, and that grew substantially. We met in multiple communities. The community was invited, the community turned out. The community members had input. Believe me, the commissioners and council heard that input and took those comments into consideration as the specifications for this project were drafted. The elected officials, not only from the county level, but from cities and towns, townships that have provided comments and feedback into this process were extensive as well. The first responder community, I think that the Fire Association meeting that we attended in Akron was probably one of the largest fire association meetings that I've been in Indiana. There was a large representation there, and we had an opportunity to present this process and receive feedback from them. Understanding that any ambulance service will only be successful in the event that they rely upon the emergency medical responders, the first responders from the township fire departments, the local level, who arrive sooner, provide patient care quicker until the ambulance arrives. And that was a cornerstone of the specifications that were drafted in Fulton County and the requirements that were put in there, such as continual training, replacement of consumable supplies, advanced training for those EMRs who wanted to become an EMT or become a paramedic, be recertified. Those requirements were written into the specifications for a couple of reasons. One is that, as I said, they arrive on scene faster than the ambulance because they're in proximity. But secondly, that it provides a feeder system for EMS agencies for potential new employees down the road. Those of you who have sat in meetings and you've heard Brent and I speak, we've talked about the loss of paramedics and EMTs in the state of Indiana since COVID. Every provider has faced that, and we wanted to ensure that there was a feeder system of some sort for patient care and those providers in those specifications. We heard from the business community. The business community was loud and clear as to their expectations for EMS service in the county. School corporations, the local hospital, and the EMS providers themselves. Each one of these categories, and I'm not sure that I missed anyone, has provided a great deal of information from the very first time we met in Fulton County with the EMS Commission. And emails and phone calls that we received and dialogue during those meetings has been extensive. I guess I should have said before I got started that there's probably a number of you here that attended tonight thinking that there would be a decision made by commissioners on the award of a contract. The tentative schedule and the specifications has been amended. That award will be made on or before November 20th, depending on any work effort that the EMS committee is required to do after tonight's meeting. So there will not be a decision made tonight by commissioners on the award of the contract. There was a stakeholder working group that was put together to do the assessment, the evaluation, and research, interviews, demonstrations, Q&A of any proposals that were received. Gail, Rebecca, Rick, Ron, Paula, Tom, and Jeff, they're all here seated at the table before us and are available for questions by commissioners or council, and will provide feedback as we walk through this presentation from their point of view as being involved in this process. They spent a great deal of time reviewing the proposals, asking questions, having deliberations, checking references, double checking references, checking additional references. So from Brent and I's perspective, I want to thank each one of you for the time, in addition to your day job, that you put into this process that will allow us to move forward. The specifications were published, and there were 3 responses received from qualified EMS providers. Upon commissioners receiving those, Heartland EMS, Lutheran EMS, and Parkview EMS all submitted proposal packets to the commissioners. Right. From those, obviously each one of those being qualified providers, they were scheduled for interviews, demonstrations, and questions and answers with this committee. I think it was the 19th and 20th of last month. We spent 2 days interviewing those proposers, and they also brought equipment and provided demonstrations for the committee. From those interviews, they also submitted additional information to the committee for review and consideration. In those evaluations, additional references were sought. They provided the additional references to allow the committee to continue in their work session. So the committee heard me say often, and we had conversation around this, that the committee's primary responsibility and focus was not cost. Their primary responsibility was that of service, and that the consideration of cost would come at a later date, but the primary responsibility of cost lies with the elected officials. But because cost is where everyone always seems to go, I decided to present that first. Let's get that out of the way before we start talking about the nuts and bolts in the qualifications. You will not see Parkview listed. The committee shortlisted the responses. In Parkview's presentation of their proposal, their understanding was that the county was getting back in the ambulance business, and part of their proposal was for the county to buy ambulances and pay for capital expenditures in excess of $5,000. And the specifications did not call for the county to go into the ambulance business. And the price point for buying ambulances, having ambulances, buying the equipment, the price point exceeded consideration by the county, and when the committee shortlisted, they shortlisted to Heartland and Lutheran. So in the cost part of the specifications, you'll see Heartland in 2024, 25, 26, and 27, their stipend request, $1.35 million. In their presentation, that stipend covers personnel costs for the infrastructure, the personnel that they were to provide. And we'll talk a little bit more about that at a later date. So in that 4-year contract, the total contract at $5.4 million. Lutheran, 24, their subsidy request was $0. As you all know, Lutheran has not been paid a subsidy in recent years under the current contract that they have. In 25, their subsidy is $400,000. 26, $420,000. In 27, the proposal was written at $421,000. Following the interviews with the providers, we received notification that there was an error in the proposal that was submitted, and that their 27 proposal price would actually be $441,000, not the $421,000. However, for tonight's purposes, it's $421,000 if they are the successful proposer then the $441,000 will be a topic of discussion during contract negotiations. This was a 4-year contract, and in the contract, there would be a provision that would allow the county, upon mutual agreement, to extend the contract for an additional term of 4 years with negotiated stipends. So this is the subsidy request by the two providers that the county would be obligated to pay for that company to have resources in the county. The thing that we heard loud and clear was that there was an expectation by the citizens that there be 3 ambulances in Fulton County. That there be an ambulance in Rochester, in Akron, and in Kewanna at the existing facilities. Both of these providers submitted proposals that included those 3 ambulances in those communities. In Lutheran's proposal, there is an additional 4th ambulance that's unmanned and unstaffed that's used as a backup or fill-in as needed that is stationed in Rochester. As part of Heartland's proposal, they propose to use the 3 ambulances and an additional Ford F-150 paramedic chase truck to support the work of those 3 ambulances. Okay. So this is the county's financial obligation for each one of those providers. Right. In the proposal, each one of the vendors submitted billing per patient, per run, as part of the cost matrix. And depending on if it's a basic life support run, or if it's an advanced life support paramedic run, if it's emergency, if it's non-emergency, is dependent upon their price points. So this is what a insurance company or a patient would be billed for those particular runs in Fulton County. Now that does not take into account what a provider would take an assignment, if it's a Medicaid or Medicare patient, what they would take in negotiations with an insurance company, or what they would write off to determine what they would then bill a qualified patient. They're not going to send a bill to a patient if it's a Medicaid or Medicare, but if it is insured or self-pay, the citizen would receive a bill. Straightforward 4 categories with a mileage loaded rate, which is the mileage they pay to transport a patient at $20 a mile. Heartland proposed this fee schedule in years 1 and 2 with the clarification that years 3 and 4 would be negotiated prior to the start of the new year in year 3 and year 4. Lutheran. This is their billing for the same methodology: basic life support, advanced life support, emergency, non-emergency, for a citizen in Fulton County. Their mileage rate loaded is $40 a loaded mile. They have additional fees that they charge for additional services that were not identified in Heartland's proposal. So treatment, no transport. They come to your house, they don't transport you, but they provide a treatment. If it's a BLS run, that's $107. If it's a paramedic level treatment but no transport, it's $486. That's not to say that Heartland does not charge that fee. We don't know, it wasn't in the proposal. Same with the Intercept. I've already told you this, but here it is in the slide. I got ahead of myself. This is the resources that were proposed by each of the providers in the county. In the specifications, there was a requirement that they house ambulances in Akron, Kiwanis, and Rochester. Both have complied with that. There's additional resources under each provider. And in the specifications, there was an ask from the county. The county strongly encouraged any proposer to consider adding an additional resource for patient transports out of Woodlawn Hospital. When we were doing our community focus groups, one of the things that was shared with us was the amount of time that it takes for an ambulance to arrive to transport a patient from Woodlawn to another medical facility for any given reason. And while the county was not in a position to contract for that or to require that, it was an ask. In Heartland's response, they have a transport division that's available to them that they pledged to work with Woodlawn Hospital to utilize that branch of their company for transports. In Lutheran's response, they pledged their commitment to continue working with Woodlawn Hospital in that relationship for patient transfers. So while we know that in government, money is a driving factor in a lot of things that we do, the patient care and service that is provided is paramount. And obviously, anyone in this room that's had a family member or a friend or a neighbor or you yourself who have required the use of an ambulance, you appreciate the fact that they're close, they're equipped, and they're trained. And there's not a unit of government in Indiana that could afford to have enough ambulances or resources readily available for every call that's made. Because the numbers that you had read on a previous slide would be astronomical. And that's true across the board. One of the things that we were required to do was to look at the service level, look at the service elements, what had been asked for in the specifications. How did the proposer respond? What did they comply? Did they take exception? Or did they not comply? I can tell you that the two under consideration, they did not use the do not comply in any category. There's either comply, agree with, or comply with exception, which means they provided an alternative to that part of the specification, all of which were acceptable and responsive. So what we did is we did a SWOT analysis. Brent's going to cover this part of the presentation, walk through this SWOT analysis, what it is, what we found, and what I would like to do during this part of the presentation for those of you on the committee to interject your thoughts that you may have in addition to the high-level thoughts that you'll see on this screen. It doesn't mean that these are all inclusive. It means that these are discussion points that we found that we had and we wanted to present to council and commissioners.
Barry, if you don't mind, why don't we go around the table and everybody introduce themselves and tell them where they are so people, when they talk, they know who's talking, if you don't mind?
Sure.
Ladies first.
I'm Chantal, I'm the representative of Auditor's Office. Lori Hurst, County Counsel.
Chase Thompson, County Counsel.
Bill Olinger, County Counsel.
Steve Fishburne, County Counsel.
Ron Dittman, County Council, and a member of the EMS Board.
Pete Karras, County Counsel.
Randy Gundrum, County Counsel.
Jeff Finke, committee member.
Tom Muller, Committee Member.
Rebecca Hartzler, Committee Member.
Paula McKinney, Woodlawn Health Committee Member. Gail Karas, Committee Member.
Dave Summers, Commissioner.
Rick Ranstead, Commissioner and member of the committee.
Brian Lewis, Commissioner.
Okay.
I'm Brent Meadows, I'm part of Ritter Strategics, I'm also on the committee.
All right, you're up.
Okay, first of all, real quick, I'm going to explain to you what a SWOT analysis is. Some of you may or may not know. And the SWOT analysis has been around for many years, and it is a tool that we use to measure any business, any organization. I've even used it on my children from time to time when we've had disagreements to bring forth what's good and what's bad. So we did a pretty high-level SWOT analysis of, S stands for strengths, W stands for weaknesses, O stands for opportunities, and T stands for threats. Now the strengths and the weaknesses are all internal. In other words, they're internal to the organization that we're looking at. Everything is controlled by the organization. The opportunity and the threats can be both internal and external. External being outside of the organization, like in the community, how that would impact certain things. And the same statement can be in more than one category. This thing could be an opportunity, but it could also be a threat, depending on how you look at it or how it's presented. So that's what a SWOT analysis looks like. So we're going to go through some of the things we came up with in the committee. And again, I would encourage the committee, if any one of those points they would like to talk about, please raise your hand and we will let you interject. So we're going to start with strengths. These are the internal strengths of the organization. These were put together by what we found in their RFP, what we found in their background, what we found in checks with the State EMS Commission, talking to their customers. This was really diving deep into the organization to understand what their strengths were. For Heartland EMS, they're an established BLS and ALS service. BLS means basic life support, which is use of an AED and the basic first aid skills and patient assessment skills that are required by the state of Indiana. ALS is advanced, which includes either, in some cases, an advanced EMT or paramedics, which have all the qualifications of an EMT, but other skills that require more advanced techniques like airway and things like that, medications, reading 12 leads, so forth and so on. We found no EMS complaints at the state level. They have 911 dedicated ambulances. They have a transport division available. They do a lot of EMS transports throughout the state of Indiana and other states. They also do 911 in Indiana and other states. They propose a flat rate billing for self-insured. They're going to work with the self-insured people. They have state-of-the-art equipment. They do have patient billing. They are not a hospital-based service. There are certain rules and regulations that differ between a private or a county ambulance service versus a hospital-based service. And one of those things are billing. They will provide training for EMRs. They're doing that now and they want to continue to do that. And they have dispatch software that can be integrated with the current PSAP. Lutheran strengths are, again, they're established BLS and ALS service. They've been around a long time. They have no complaints against them at the state level. They currently have boots on the ground. They're currently here with local people serving the community as paramedics and EMTs. Their employees know this area. They know the county pretty well. They also carry the same state-of-the-art equipment. Proposed subsidy, their rate was less than Heartland's. They have available ambulances in surrounding areas. They could pull ambulances from Kosciuszko County or as far away as Fort Wayne if they needed to. And they have a strong CEO support from the KCH hospital. Yes, sir.
They also do provide the continuing education for EMRs and EMT classes
Okay.
that are available to the county.
They do also provide that training. My apologies to Lutheran. It's probably 3 in the morning when I missed that, so I'm sorry. All right, anything else that the committee would like to add on strengths from either organization? All right, we're going to go to weaknesses. My apologies. I usually up walking around, but because the camera's here, I'm going to stay seated. These are some of the things we identified. There'll be a new service to Fulton County. They'll be brand new to Fulton County. They've not been here before. They have a long, long history of transports and not as much 911 work, but they are certified by the state and they do have 911 services in other areas of the state and other states. They don't currently have an established workforce in Fulton County, which means we're going to find out what their idea is to get a workforce. Their community relationship right now is new, so there's not much going on. The community doesn't know a lot about them, and they don't know a lot about the community. So currently that's a weakness. And they have a learning curve for the local system operations, like the PSAP and things like that, because every county is different. They'll tell you that. So it's going to take a little bit of a learning curve to make sure that they're on the right frequency, following, as far as 911 goes, Gale's rules, as I call them, to make sure that they understand when we dispatch ambulances. Lutheran's weaknesses are a fractured relationship with the community members. Now, I want to make sure everyone understands that's not the boots on the ground. That's not the people that comes to your house and treats your family members and takes them to the hospital. The decision to withdraw from the county was done at a much higher level than those boots on those everyday people. So I want to make sure you understand that. They also have the inability to staff that third ambulance. That came about from when they pulled their third ambulance. Ambulances used in surrounding counties for coverage. Sometimes that's a weakness because it takes a long time for that ambulance to get here. We've heard in our community meetings and from the hospital that sometimes there was a long wait time to get another ambulance, maybe to cover a 911 slot or a transport. And the lack of commitment in addressing billing practices. It was clear that their billing practices, again, much higher than the boots on the ground, where you're getting a bill. This is what it is.
Yeah, I think I'd like to add that the ambulances used in surrounding counties for coverage, you'll see that identified as a weakness, and it could also be a strength. In today's environment of system status management and moving resources, oftentimes we heard, well, they took that ambulance and they sent it to Miami County when they were at ground zero or level 0 in Miami County and they needed an ambulance close. All right, so that's a detriment, that's a weakness. But it's also a strength in that when it's level 0 in Fulton County, they would pull an ambulance from another county and move it geographically close in managing their resources. So that's one of those things that would be a strength and a weakness both, depending on time of day, call load, service level, and your need, and waiting on an ambulance or an ambulance being staged and being able to respond. So that is one of those that can fall in either category.
We're going to move on to,
You got a committee now.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just a point of clarification for Heartland, the long history of transports and not 911, I think that's so that they understand it's specific to Indiana. When we call Texas, all the references there, they have MICU trucks, which is a medical ICU, and they're running several of them down there in Texas. So just to point that out, that's not a weakness necessarily. If you put up there the MICU trucks, that's a strength.
A MICU truck would be, for lack of a better term, to helicopter on wheels. They can handle patients with multiple IVs and multiple pumps and multiple medications, and normally extra crew on there. So,
You ready?
all right, very good. All right, we're going to move to opportunities, and again, the committee would like to interject. Please do. Heartland gets to establish a new contract with new service level agreements and protocols. For lack of a better, it's a fresh start. And everything could be negotiated the way that the county would like it negotiated. They can build positive community relationships. New organization in a new county, they're going to come in and get involved with the things that are going on in the community, becoming part of the community. Their billing transparency, we heard in our many meetings the issues of billing, and several of the community organizations have people, and the insurance was not recognized by Lutheran as an insurance where they could maybe negotiate down. And in many cases, the insurance didn't cover many of the charges, and they have made clear in their presentation that they will negotiate any ambulance bill from anybody. The transport cost sheet, as you can see, both of them gave you what their costs are. What you see is what you get. They have nothing to hide. They will take patients to various hospitals within administrative rules. They have no obligation to any one hospital. So they will transport. At any time, they'll transport to wherever Woodlawn wants them to on a transport, and for 911, in most cases, where the patient wants to go, whether that be South Bend or Kosciuszko County, KCH, or Woodlawn. They also want to provide opportunities to work with Woodlawn Hospital, and it was clear in their presentation that they would do that. That was an important part of the piece of the puzzle for responding to this RFP. Lutheran, their opportunity is, and again, above boots on the ground. I can't say that enough. Repair the relationship with community members. Several members, several people, several communities are upset that Lutheran pulled out of the contract. I'll remind you, a contract that was paying $0, pulled its third ambulance out of an area because of staffing and or lack of runs. So they have an opportunity to step to the plate and rebuild those relationships. Maintain current workforce who are residents of Fulton County. I met with the boots on the ground, and I think at last count, everybody that works on the Fulton County ambulance lives in Fulton County with the exception of one, and the rest of the staff threaten that person to either get into Fulton County or they're going to do something to them. I'm not sure. But that's how deeply rooted they are into the community. continue their working relationship with first responder agencies. We heard nothing negative from the first responders, other than in one area, bring our 3rd ambulance back. They're easy to work with. They work well. They trade out equipment when needed, and they are almost like one big happy family with the first responders. Establish service level agreements to measure service by. Is this what we talked about, the QA they have?
Not yet, no. We'll touch on
All right. And new contract language. If you saw the old contract, you would understand why there needs to be a new contract. So this gives Luther an opportunity to negotiate a new contract also to make it better for their organization as well as the county.
I think it's important to point out that for Lutheran, that repair the relationship with the community, if that's what we thought year one, $0, and that lower price, it's an apology.
Correct. All right. And the last but not least, threats. Heartland's new. So they're a new vendor with an unknown reputation. Doesn't matter what you call and find out, people are going to say all sorts of things, good and bad, but you're going to measure that by what they do when they get here. If they're the chosen one, are they doing everything they said? New protocols. They have a set of medical protocols that differ some from Lutheran, based on the parameters of the medical director of the state of Indiana, that they have been recognized as having some of the most aggressive protocols in the state as far as patient care. They do have available workforce, but not up here yet. So if they're awarded the contract, where's their workforce coming from? And they've advised us they have a plan for that. And again, transparency expectations by the county based on previous experiences. So again, they're going to be measured at a high level. They're new, right? So there's going to be a lot of eyes on the organization. And everything they do is going to be scrutinized, as it should be. But they're going to have to meet that high level of expectation that the county commissioners have asked for. On the Lutheran side, some of the threats are the inability to repair the relationship. They're going to be under the microscope too. Boots on the ground are not a problem. I promise you they're not a problem. The higher level at Lutheran, and sometimes I use the term as the bean counters, they can't control what their decisions are. So they may be faced with the inability to make people happy again, or to rebuild that level of trust that there once was. Again, lack of support with any change in upper management. Most likely, most concerned is the CEO of KCH, which has made it clear he is 110% in supporting this. But we don't know how long he's going to be there. He's one that goes around and cleans up organizations and makes them better and moves on. He has said in a meeting he doesn't plan on going anywhere. No interest in reviewing their billing practices. Again, that's way above the boots on the ground. I know that they have started to address some things. I know that because Alicia contacted us and told us. But they're under that umbrella of the upper management. So there's a possibility if that doesn't change, they won't be able to change too much. Limited number of ambulances in service area to maintain coverage limits. So they may be short ambulances, depending on the number of transports. And whether those transports come from a 911 truck, which they should not, unless there's a severity of transport from someone at Woodlawn that must go right away, and how soon they can get other ambulances. This is all based on past performance of that. Lack of transparency is not boots on the ground. Those people will tell you exactly what they think. The local management will too. They're very open. But above them, understanding Lutheran is a big organization, transparency gets a little muddy from time to time. So they'll have to work through that. Weak commitment to address transport needs of Woodlawn. When you look at the RFP, they say they will have trucks if Woodlawn needs to do a transport, but they weren't clear on where those trucks would come from. Whether they were going to try to pull them from the 911, which I don't believe they were, but they were going to pull from surrounding areas to come into Woodlawn to do the transport. Didn't say anything about having that fourth ambulance or that fourth vehicle unit at Woodlawn to do transports. I'm going to let Barry take the last one on the proposed subsidy, because you made a comment that makes sense, and Barry just wants to add to this.
Well, I think the proposed subsidy could fall into any category. It could be in the strengths because it's not going to cost you money in year one. I think it's also could be considered a threat depending upon the formation of language in a contract, that what would that subsequently do in future years should there need to be a revision of the contract. There's comfort in knowing what you get and what you've got. The service level of your current provider for $0 is well known. Each of you know that. In this proposal, that service continues at $0. Contrary, Heartland's proposal is as a startup company in Fulton County for their operational cost of personnel, and in their interview, they shared that all other costs and all our expenses was for them to worry about. All they wanted was their personnel covered. For council, that's a drastic range from one end to the other. And we have done our best to highlight the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. This committee has done their due diligence in helping us with this. It's nice to be able to sit here and tell you that RSS, my company, we're independent. We don't care who you contract to provide EMS service, as long as you contract a well-qualified and trained provider that you can work with. Well, as we said here today, both of these companies are well-qualified. Both of these companies are well-trained. Both of these companies have a footprint in some level of service, either in or out of Indiana. Both have pledged to provide a level of service as called for by the specifications. Either one would provide an excellent level of care. Some areas would be easier, some areas maybe not so much. And that's the joy of sitting on this side of the table, is that it's up to you to make the decision, and you to make the decision as to that company which is considered to be the most responsive. And under Indiana law, most responsive doesn't mean the cheapest. The most responsive is meeting the specifications as required by the county. And in this due diligence, making sure that you're being fiscally responsible. And as elected officials, that's where that decision lies. It's not with this committee, it's not with Brent or I, it's with council and commissioners. So where do we go from here? Well, tonight we're at the Commissioner Council Workshop to provide you the information that we have received this far, our evaluation, anything gleaned from the proposals, the interviews, the demonstrations, the background checks, the follow-up information, for you to then take into consideration what the county should do. Obviously, the commissioners to award the project, and under the specifications, you can either award a contract or you can pull the project and not award. I don't think that's a wise decision because you want to make sure you have EMS service come mid-January of 24. And in collaboration with council, how are you going to pay for it? I've said in more than one meeting that while EMS is not a required public safety initiative of local government in the state of Indiana, it's a necessity. And it's expensive. It's no different than the sheriff's department or the jail or the local fire department or the local police department. Public safety is expensive. And having that ambulance sit in that facility, I compare it to a fire truck. You have it in the firehouse and you hope you never have to use it. But when the phone rings and Gail's folks tone you out, you hope that truck is sitting there and his staff is equipped and the personnel are trained to respond to your house for either yourself, a family member, or a friend. And deciding what is in the best interest of Fulton County for the citizens lies on each one of you in here. The decision to award a contract on or before November 20th, I'm confident will allow us sufficient time to negotiate any contract that would need to be negotiated prior to any transition in January, if there was a transition from Lutheran to Heartland. If there's not a transition, the continuity of service for Lutheran. All right. A couple of things that have become clear through this process is that Fulton County has an EMS board, an EMS commission, that the commissioners have agreed to entertain reorganizing that commission or that board as it is established today, and that there be a full, transparent quality assurance program in place, meaning that the terms that are negotiated in the contract, because it'll look nothing like the contract that you have today or that you had, it'll be written to protect the county's interest, to ensure service to the taxpayers, but also provide assurance to the provider as to what the county's obligations are. Within those service level agreements and the quality assurance that we will do on a quarterly basis of that provider will not be anything like you've experienced before. And so that'll be for the life of a contract that you may award to any vendor. There'll be more to come on the reorganization of that commission and the makeup of that commission and the role and responsibility for commissioners to review in the coming weeks. So with that, any questions from commissioners or from council of either Brent or I or the committee? And if it's something we don't have the answer for tonight, we will search to find the answer and bring that information back to you, which is one of the main reasons behind extending the award of this contract to ensure that the committee had time to do any additional work on this project as deemed necessary.
Based on the number of runs, which I know you've got that, there's a cost difference to the individuals who the service is being provided for. of those that are being transported by one company or the other. And Lutheran was higher than what Heartland was. Do you have any idea on what those total dollars would be at the end of the year? The difference?
Not,
I tend to work out some numbers.
Go ahead.
Or would you rather?
no, if you calculate, go ahead.
So based on, I just took ALS numbers for the two organizations, and I'm going to start with Heartland, and I'll go with Lutheran. So I did the 2875, and I just said we're doing 2,200 runs a year. So everything was considered the same. So that amount was $6,325.
For who?
This is Heartland.
Say that again. With
Lutheran or Heartland?
Heartland. No, am I all over the place?
No, I don't know. Just want to make sure I knew.
2,500, or 2,800, that was,
Well, I did the 200 and 2,000 plus the 875, so I did their highest cost.
2,200, but 875? Okay.
I'll just stop, because I'm not on the same page.
No, let me just run it.
I think,
If you use the number 2,200 runs a year times 875, that's the BOS level, right? Heartland comes in at 1.925 million. What was Lutheran's BOS? Right.
I think what she did was she combined level 1 and 2 together for 2875, and then calculated that by the 2,200 runs.
What I will,
That's what I did, but I did not do BLS.
I would say, give us time to run those cost calculations. In Heartland's response, we clarified with them today, there was they transposed the numbers between level 1 and level 2 in cost. So in this slide deck, it represents appropriate cost. So I would say before we go further in sharing numbers, they give us an opportunity to run a spreadsheet. We'll work with the committee. We'll give you scenarios.
I guess I was interested in the fact, what's going to cost those that are being transported, that their out-of-pocket costs and things would be between the two companies, as compared to the county's cost overall, which way that falls into place. Because more than likely, there's a lot of those who are paying out of pocket. They're going to be, that's a fewer number than what we have county residents.
Switch to the next
And
one. just a minute.
the total difference between the 5 million and 1 million is spread over the whole county.
There's a large number of Medicaid and Medicare ones which have a flat rate regardless of what each company charges. They're only going to get reimbursed X amount of dollars.
Okay.
So it's not everyone. So if I'm unemployed and I don't have insurance, I'm on Medicare. The bill that gets submitted, there's a flat rate of what my insurance is going to pay. It's non-negotiable with
Yeah. So, hold on just a minute. Mr. Chairman, are you on?
let's just hold on to the end here.
For public
Yeah.
comment.
Hold on just a minute for public comment. If Medicaid and Medicare is a flat rate for both, it's the same.
There's a
This
high
affects
percentage.
those who has insurance or doesn't have insurance, that doesn't have Medicare or Medicaid, this will be an out-of-pocket expense. So
We'll work on a spreadsheet.
we'll work on a spreadsheet and have that done fairly quickly.
Rebecca, we'll make sure the committee has up-to-date numbers from what's in the book.
We have one way of tracking past billing to see what the percentage is of Medicaid, Medicare. I'm sure you'd want to know that as well for the area.
We know it, so we can help give that. Any other questions from commissioners or council?
I have a question. You mentioned there were Lutheran employees or Fulton County residents. Do you know how many there are?
Alicia,
I think we were told all but one, but I can't tell you how many.
I can't tell you exactly, but there was a big bunch at the meeting. There was 20 plus at the meeting.
There's approximately 4 out of all of our full-time staff that are not, and even some of our part-time staff are Fulton
You got a number?
How many?
Total, how many?
4 out of our
No,
total.
I mean, over,
Oh,
Lori asked overall.
How many residents live, are, of Fulton County are
Employees,
Fifteen,
yes.
20, what,
12. We'll get, I mean, we can provide that
Okay.
accurate information, but majority.
number of jobs?
Randy, do you have a question?
Yeah, I thought we originally had 3 people submitting bids. So I got 2.
He was late.
Oh, Fulton.
Yeah, there were 3. The third was Parkview. Parkview submitted a bid, and during their interview and presentation, they stated that they were under the impression the specifications called for the county to go into the ambulance business. And so their proposal was for the county to buy ambulances and pay for any capital expenditures in excess of $5,000, which is not the intent of the specifications or the county, which then elevated the subsidy, which priced them out of that consideration. And that doesn't mean when you leave here tonight, if you think of a question, you all have my contact information, my phone number. Send me an email or call.
I've got a statement for you. I will say it was imperative that we had Woodlawn on this review committee. Paula has the insight because that's where your ambulance services are going to require those transports. So with that being said, she was a godsend with the direct questions that was needed for your hospital today. Because her service, your citizens that go to Woodlawn are requiring those transfer services. So Paula had that direct questions and just that forefront of giving us that whole round effect of what those ambulance services are required through the county, because obviously 911 calls are not going to make somebody rich, right? So, and it's gonna cost you guys money. So kudos to you, Paula, for asking those questions that needed to answer your questions. So she is a great one to ask when it comes to the transfers, billing, and so forth with the citizens and the needs of the hospital here.
I guess going into here, we had two things that were deal breakers. That you must provide transport for Woodlawn Hospital, and you must have put the other ambulance back in that. That was the deal breaker of the contract. That was the first thing we said all along. Because, like you say, Woodlawn Hospital, your loved one could need transport out. We need the transport.
Ron, did you want to, like, your findings? I know you've commented a few times.
Well, it's just again, you take from 650 east, you've got one feeling, and from 650 west, you've got another. So, and there's pluses and minuses in both presentations. I think we all agreed on that. So it's just, that's what we gotta do, we just gotta weigh it. Weigh everything.
Is there any other comments from the council? Any questions,
I have none.
commissioners?
Were there any issues with where the current ambulances are housed now? Like, are they good to stay there where they're at?
Yes, from commitments from each of those jurisdictions, the conversations that we've had, either provider would be welcome to maintain their presence there. Currently, there's an agreement between the provider and that unit of government as to what that looks like and what services are provided and what the charge is. And that would maintain or be maintained between the provider and that unit of government. Now, we did ask those communities to consider renegotiating the fee that they charge as part of their contribution to the process, and they have pledged when we get to that point that's a topic of discussion.
The only thing I would say to the council, having served on this committee from my perspective of the hospital, is it's a very emotionally charged subject. And I wasn't part of all that emotion, but I felt it and I witnessed it. But I think for all of you, it's a very daunting task to figure out what you're going to do. And even though this is a 4-year agreement, I think you got to look at the county for years and years to come, what's best. So don't just stop at the 4-year. Think to yourselves what's good for 50 years from now, okay? That's all I need to say.
Any other comment from the council, commissioners, or the committee? Okay, I'd like to have Harlan and Lutheran. I'm not sure if there's any upper management from Lutheran that would like to make a comment. If you guys want to take a couple minutes. Harlan, and you had you first on. Would you like to make a
Sure, thank you. Heartland Ambulance Service, my name is Ken Jackson. I'd encourage you, understand the bill, and the rate that we're asking for as subsidy is not a number that we take lightly. And understanding your question was good, there is a blended rate. If we could get that on each call, we wouldn't need a subsidy. So adding that to it doesn't really work. So if any of you go home tonight and you look and just try to add up what it costs to employ, that's what we're asking for. So we still have a lot of work and a lot of skin in the game moving forward. This doesn't by any means give us the ability to sit back and just say, well, we've got ours, because we don't. I think there is financial responsibility, but I think you also have a stewardship with the money. So if you did spend that money, it's how you're going to steward it. One of the things that I don't think that really was too transparent in the analysis that I'd like to make sure everybody's clear on is our finances are an open book. And so at any point, or even a set quarterly, we're willing to come in and show you where every dime went in our accounting system. And you'll see the struggles that we have. We do that everywhere we're at. Nobody doesn't take us up on that offer, so sometimes that's a little complicated, but quarterly is definitely something that we can do and show you where that money was spent. It's a lot of money, but it's expensive to do it. Since COVID, the medications are ridiculous. Glove costs are ridiculous. The basic needs that we have to operate are crazy. And we're not asking for that, we're asking for payroll. So I'm happy to field any questions at all. I could talk all night. So any questions? Yes, Barry.
You commented on this in your interview, and we talked a lot about Heartland not having a workforce here. And this is not the first community that you've gone into and tried to staff. Share with commissioners and council what you shared with us in your interview about staffing.
So, yeah, it's a touchy
Although you
subject.
weren't there, but it's the same.
It's kind of a touchy subject, right? So if one provider is gone, those employees are offered a job with the next provider. Maybe it's at the same rate, maybe at a higher rate. We've not even addressed those, what they're being paid, or we looked. We know what we're willing to pay. So there could be, there'd definitely be an offer for them, right? We need them. There's a shortage in Indiana. There's no special slots. We would be placing people here until we got that figured out. And how we do that is a little bit of a special sauce. We have over 500 employees across the United States that come in and fill operations for us. Things that didn't make it to this is we operate in Wilmington, Indiana. We operate Bedford County 911, but we operate it for another provider. But it's our staff. They can't staff it, so we staff it. We do this all over the United States. So we're confident in our ability to staff it. It's not a long-term plan. It's not something that we financially want to do for long-term because they don't live here. But we're going to build the trust level with the people that do live here. And hopefully they'll come work for us. If not, we'll hire and position as we need to. Our next closest base is Kokomo, Indiana. We have ambulances and staff out of there. So if we have to, we'll reposition them. We made mention of the Chase 911 truck. If anybody has any questions what that is, I'm sure you're all figured it out by now. But that's an equipment, a truck that holds the ALS equipment so we can meet up with anybody and offer those services. We're pretty proud of the fact that we can carry blood. That's something that's, hugely important, and that truck would have that blood as well. Anybody else?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
My name is Alicia Mariano. I'm the director of our 911 service. I manage the service lines in Kosciuszko, Fulton, and Miami counties. I bring that up because one thing that I'm the most proud of is our Fulton County division is, as we've mentioned several times tonight, is our boots on the ground people. And I think that's something that we go back to and we reflect a lot on, is the people that are here servicing your community are the ones that you guys have all expressed high respect for. Those are people who we routinely put extra work in, routinely making sure that they are trained and available and able to do things. There's a conversation that was had earlier I just want to clarify about, in previous, there was an issue with staffing. That, yes, did happen. However, since that incident, we have, because of the support of our hospital, been able to take a proactive stance and currently have 16 EMTs that are currently in paramedic school. Staffing is not the concern that we have now. The concern that we have now is, as you've mentioned several times, rebuilding that relationship with the county, showing that Lutheran, yes, has been here for years to come, and yes, more importantly, as Paula mentioned, is excited to be here for years to come. There are service lines that were not requested in particular of the RFP. I don't think they were completely reviewed here in reference to our MICU services. That is a service line that we have actually in specific added that in the recent year to be able to have that MICU service immediately available, staffed with people that are covering and living in our coverage areas. So that is availability that we have in reference to that. So there are extra things that I'm happy to discuss and I'm happy to talk about. I know that a lot of the conversations are wrapped around the billing information and the amounts of that. I think there's a lot of communication maybe that has been passed off that isn't as transparent or accurate, and we're happy to have those information, and we will provide that with you guys. In reference to, as Brett mentioned, that we've already gone into the process of having direct conversations about Fulton County management and accounts that people have mentioned to the county commissioners about concerns with the amounts of billed or things of that nature. And so that is all a direct relationship that we have with our county and our commitment to staying here and providing that high level. One thing that I can't stress enough is that as all of these changes has happened, many of your staff members, many of the boots on the ground people are sitting back here tonight. And that just shows the passion that they have to continue that service line and that support of that network. So I think that speaks very highly of them, and I'd just like to publicly, again, take that stance to express my appreciation to each and every single one of them. So, any questions for me?
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we have a little bit of public here. Is there anybody in the public have a comment or a question? For just stand and state your name, please.
I'm Don Orr, taxpayer here in Fulton County, and it just seems to me that everybody's skirting around the elephant in the room to me, which is $5 million versus $1 million. And I don't even think there's a choice at that point if you're going to charge, I don't want to have to have my taxes raised to cover this $5 million bill, a $4 million something over what Lutheran's going to charge. That's my point. I don't even think there's a consideration to be made personally. And the other one I want to talk about is this supposed bad blood for Lutheran for what they did. The people that I talk to in the community have no clue that Lutheran was doing this for free, when all they hear about is they pulled an ambulance out of Akron. Yes, unfortunate. Nobody wanted it to happen, including Lutheran. But since they were for profit and they weren't getting $1 million a year from Fulton County, it's what they had to do.
And that's what I've got to say. I mean, I'm pretty impassioned about it, so yeah, I could go on and probably get thrown out, but that's my point that I'd like to make. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm Bill Hewitt. I'm the president of the Niagara South Mud Lake Association. Some people know me, some don't, but I can tell you, like his point, as a taxpayer, all of us down there are concerned about this $4.1 million delta. It's gonna have to come from someplace. The other thing, as far as service, us people down there, we have had no problem whatsoever with Fulton. They show up, they've called, I don't have the exact number, but I think probably right now they've answered 25 to 30 calls down there this year. They're always there, they're always prompt, first responders are there. I come from a big company that deals in SWOT analysis and that sort of thing, and both sides of the table, and I get it. But it's about the people. You look at the people that you deal with, the people that you live with, and the bottom line. And that's basically my stance on it. You gotta take a look at the community that we have, the way that people stick together and take care of each other. Thank you.
Anybody else? Council, questions, questions?
I'd like to say something in response to he mentioned. Yes, it's obvious what's on the screen, but have you figured out what each individual is going to be paying for the ambulance and the difference in their bills to their insurance? My taxpayers are going to have an $8,000 bill compared to a $4,000 bill is the way I'm figuring it. So when you get to figuring that, that's where I'm kind of concerned about my taxpayers. Yes, there's one big bill that we're gonna have to deal with, but there's a difference in what my constituents are gonna be paying for the service that they're getting. I'm concerned about that.
I prefer to pay for the service if I need it, not pay for other people's services if I don't need it.
Correct, but we're also, if you choose one, you're gonna also be having a lot more in small claims court if you, when you come down to it, because that's where they end up. I remember I was in the offices when we had our own ambulance service here in the county, and I know how many I had on my list.
I did have one more question. Is there an out clause built into either one of these contracts for this 4-year deal?
There will be. The contract has not been drafted yet,
Okay.
but
So
there will be for either party.
90 day, 180 days, something like that?
Yes.
I just want to appreciate everybody coming. I mean, there is a lot to this. There's a lot more than just, the average person. A lot of people don't understand what the county deals with on a daily basis, so we're trying to educate everybody. We're doing the best that we can, and I do appreciate everybody coming to this evening and voicing their concerns. It's very validated, so.
Can I ask you a question? The sign-in sheets right there, who has not signed in? You guys, could you pass that on around? We'd really like to get a record of everybody that was here. Anybody in the audience that did not sign in, if you would do that, we would appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Is that all you got?
Yeah, that's all I have.
Gail, is there anything else you- That's it?
I'm good.
Council good? Good. Okay. Then I would entertain a motion. Steve?
I would like to mention what this is going to do with the ambulance. For the Veterans Day ceremony at the courthouse is coming Saturday, 10 a.m. They will exhibit us.
Thank you. Good thing. Okay. I guess it's, I entertain a motion then to adjourn this special commissioners and council meeting.
So move.
Second. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you again for everybody that showed up this evening.
Thank you.